Anyway, Simon, at last.
Hello, Nick.
God, have I been so looking forward to this? Yeah. And Simon knows I have been.
I hope you're not going to be bitterly disappointed, Nick.
No, I'm never disappointed with you, Simon. You should know that.
You're too kind. You're too kind.
And honestly,
Nick, thank you for inviting me to our little fireside chat. You didn't tell me there's going to be a load of people listening in as well.
Yeah. You've got probably about 100 people listening on social media as well. By the time I finish, this is going to go out to about 1,000 people.
Brilliant. Well, great. Well, I know you said you want to have just a chat and ask me anything, so you fire away.
Yeah. One of the things and I go back to 2011. That's how far we go back, Simon.
Is it really? 10 years, Nick? Bloody hell.
Yeah,
wow.
10 years. 10 years. And
wow.
I had a concept. We had a couple of members, and I had the Baxi boiler on contract, and I stood up at Nottingham on a chair. Yeah. And I said what we were doing, and Simon grabbed me, and a guy called Raj Berry was standing next to you.
Yes, yeah.
And Raj was my very first member. He was my very first member.
Wow.
And you said to me, Nick, like what you're putting together, put a presentation together, and I'll let you go around the country and doing the 25-minute. Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
And it was York.
Right.
It was York. It was the very first time was York. And we will get to you in a second, but I want to tell people what you did.
Yeah, no, go for it. Yeah.
And I went up to York, and I didn't know you were going to be there. And I shit myself. And I was with a guy called Peter Francis, and I'm pacing, I'm sweating, and you come over to me and said, Nick, calm down. Just calm down. So anyway, we went on with me and Pete did a double act. I did 90% of the talking. And I came off, and I was so pleased with myself, really proud. And I said, so what do you think, Simon? He went, I've got to get you off the ceiling. He understood a word that I said. Not a word. I just gasped.
Yeah, not much has changed really, Nick, has it?
Oh, stop it. And then you said, not tomorrow, on Friday, come to my office and I'll help you put a presentation. And we spent about an hour together. You said, right, what's your beginning? What's your middle? What's your end?
Yes.
And then I did it. I put it all together. And then you let me do a couple on my own. And we went down to Bristol was my next one. I don't remember exactly where I went. And we did another 2. And then my 5th one was at the Birmingham, the one at the NEC. There was about 150 people back in 2012, this was.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never been mic'd up in my life.
Yeah.
And I start panicking. I get on the stage, I open my mouth, and nothing came up. Paul Hilliard had to jump on the stage. And this was you, Paul. This was you. Wait, I don't believe it. And that was mine. Paul came, jumped on the stage. Do you remember that, Paul? Yeah. I was shitting myself. But people don't understand that standing up, talking about a dream, a concept that you had back in 2011/12, on how I wanted to grow LMPG and what we were trying to achieve. And you just went, Nick, you got it. And you helped me again. And you've always taken my phone calls. You've always helped me. You've always been so supportive of LMPG. And I'm not blowing smoke up, yeah? And I went on another training course with you. You were doing a training course and you invited us along. And I went up and just thanked you. And nobody knew who I was. I didn't tell them who I was. I just wanted to thank you. So tonight was not payback, but after like 10 years, and I've seen you grow, and I've seen your pin and crowdfunding and your pin Christmas dinner. I am so envious of how many people you can get in a fucking room. Yeah, not in my wildest dreams could I ever think of doing that. And
it's the free wine on the table that helps, though. Yeah,
it does. But it's like I look at all the trainers, and you are far the one that's been the biggest supportive of LMPG by far. Okay, and this is not rehearsed, everybody, but I just wanted, you got a big thank you, because would we have got to our size? I had a dream of where I wanted LMPG to be, and I want to just share that tonight. Is that on our journey when I started back in 2006, and one of the things is that I wanted 5,000 members, and at my first Christmas pin, we had about 800 members. You said, Nick, your tipping point is going to be 1,500 in your professional opinion. And I said, yeah, God, are we ever going to hit 5,000? Paul wanted 10,000, but my goal was 5,000. And I can say right as of today, we are 4,954 members.
Wow, that is amazing.
We are
a lot of
46 off of hitting my 5,000 target, my dream, my goal, my passion. So I know my journey, yeah, but people don't really know your journey. They just know you as a trainer, a mastermind, and crowdfunding. So I'm asking you, when did your journey start and why?
Well, it kind of depends what you mean, as in, as we might talk about things that I've never talked about before, and some of the things I talk about, people will have heard. So I don't want to kind of bore stuff a bit of my. So I'm going to talk about some slightly different things tonight, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
I suppose it depends what you count as starting. When it comes to property, I always tell everybody, which is kind of what is correct, that I started in 1995 in property, in that I bought my first property that was my home. And a lot of people have heard me tell the story. I just started work at Cadbury's as a graduate trainee. I bought a house to live in, rented out something else. But actually, that's not actually correct. Because a few years before that, I think it must have been about 91, I actually bought a property, a no money down property with my sisters. It was a vendor finance deal. Now, it's interesting that I knew nothing about property. I didn't even know when I bought my first house, I knew nothing about property, but it was a vendor finance deal. It was a no money down deal. And it was a holiday home in Ibiza. And how did that come about? Well, my parents have never been property investors really, but they had their own home. And when my granddad died, my dad inherited a bit of money. And they bought a tiny little 2-bedroom flat in Ibiza. Way before Ibiza, yeah.
Spain.
Spain, yeah, it's a holiday home in a little resort called Calalonga, which means long bay. And it's got just an amazing beach and bay. And so for many, many years, we went there as kids. So then my mum and dad retired. My dad was a GP and he used to work, he was a very small practice, he used to work very, very hard. They weren't paid as much as GPs are paid these days. And it was, well, we had a fairly good life. I was fairly, middle class upbringing. I went to a state school, a grammar school. And it was, because it was grammar school, it was selective entry. And I was a very average student there. And I got really bad eyesight. I can't see a license plate at 25 meters. And glasses don't make much difference. So I was always sitting at the front of the class, not really didn't really enjoy school that much. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. And actually, a hobby of mine was magic. When I was a kid, I was given Paul Dan's magic trick, and I really liked that. And I started doing when I was about 15, 16, kids parties. And I thought when I was 16, I might become a full-time magician. And my mum and dad said, well, you could do that if you want, but you're smart enough to go to university. Why don't you go to university? I have 2 older sisters who went to university, and they kind of persuaded me. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so I finally went to Birmingham. I scraped in by the skin of my teeth into Birmingham University. And at that time in 1990, my parents had made the decision, my dad was going to retire early, and they were going to sell up, and they were going to retire to the south of France. And they had a nice home in Kent, and it wasn't a good time to sell. There was a bit of a recession then, you might remember, but actually they sold the property really quickly. They bought a piece of land in France, went out there, and they built their own home. They had a builder and architect doing it, but they were there kind of watching it every day. They didn't actually get involved, but they were kind of had it built for them. And we were renting for a year. They were renting for a year. So my home in England actually was removed. I had no connections in Kent anymore, where I come from originally. So I think that made me quite independent. And so when mum and dad went to France, nice sunny place, they didn't need this holiday home anymore. So they were thinking about selling it. And me and my sisters had been out several times, lots of times as kids, and then we'd gone out with friends and things. Said, well, why don't we buy it? I don't quite know how it came about. And it was only worth about £15,000, I think. But mum and dad had spent all the money on the house, and it was before dad got his pension. They didn't have much cash to live on. So they said, well, okay, well, we could buy it off us. And we bought it over a 5-year period, £5,000 each we put in over 5 years. So this £1,200 a month, a year or something, or whatever it was. I can't remember. For £1,000 a year, I think. So it wasn't much money for us to pay. We bought it between us. And that was actually my very first property deal. And I always forget about that. I was talking about my first house I lived in, but that was actually a very creative art. Someone who had a property they didn't need because they already had a home in the sun. They didn't need the money. And actually, rather than just, well, they kind of did, but rather than selling it in one go, they just sold it to us. So I've never told that story to anyone else, actually. But that was my very first property thing. And I kind of forgot all about creative stuff because when I bought my first house, I didn't have any money again. I had to borrow from my grandmother, who'd actually just sold, and she'd moved in with my parents in France. And it wasn't a gift, it was a loan. And I paid her interest and her capital back. I did it very quickly because I had 2 tenants paying pretty much the mortgage and the rent. So I was living for free. And that was my first home. And what happened was, because I used to walk to work, and I bought my house in Selly Oak, just next to Birmingham University, very good area now. And now you want to know now, I wish I'd bought a whole load of them, but I only had one of them. And then I moved closer to Cadbury's. I bought in Selly Park, which is just next to Bourneville. And I kept my first house. And it was in 1998 that I had this epiphany, this light bulb moment. Because when I moved out of my first house and rented it to students, so I became a student HMO landlord in 1998, long before there was licensing or anything like that. And I realized I had this property. And actually, if I rented it out, which I did to students, by the time I take the mortgage off, the insurance, the maintenance, and I was managing it myself at the time, so no management costs. But at the end of the month, there was money in my bank account. And next month, there was more money. And by the way, the parents would pay. I never had no problem chasing rents because the parents would pay it. And it was a really good property. So no maintenance at all. I don't think I did anything to pay for years and years. And eventually I had to change the kitchen stuff. But it was such good condition. The kids kind of looked after it. And it was probably one of the best deals I had, probably for the first 10 years. But I started to buy more. And actually, I just started buying single lets because that's what people do. And I had enough by 2001 to leave my job. Now, I hadn't replaced my income, but I had enough coming in to cover my costs. And I think that's what a lot of people like to do, want to get to the point where they can replace their income. And it's a real aspiration for many investors. I was managing my properties myself then because it didn't take much time to manage just a few properties. And then I left Cadbury's, which was, being promoted to a senior manager by then. I'd finished a graduate scheme. I had a career path mapped out. It would have been very easy to stay there. And, great company, great people, great products. But you know what? I've always been entrepreneurial. I thought, hey, I'm doing quite well for my property. Maybe if I spent more time doing my property, I could do more and I wouldn't have to work. And although I liked work, I didn't like going to work in the morning. And I didn't like the fact I only had about 4 or 5 weeks holiday a year. I like a lot more holiday than that. And so I made decisions to leave. And it was, I remember the day I handed my notice in, it was a really scary, but actually I was just walking on cloud 9 when I walked home. I thought, this is amazing, And it took me a couple more years, but by 2003, I then replaced my income. And actually, I'd done all right for myself. But I realized also that I'd made some mistakes. I mean, a lot of people who invest in property, because they've had some success, they think they know it all. They think, oh, I know everything now. Why would I go on a training course? Well, interestingly, I actually went on a training course in about 2002. It was a company called Russ Whitney, which aren't around anymore. It was a 3-day course. And I had this leaflet come through my door. By the way, I'd already left work at this point, and it said, become a property millionaire. And I thought, oh, that'd be interesting. And I'd already started investing in myself and my own personal development. So I went along to this presentation in Birmingham. It was 2 hours, went with my girlfriend at the time. And sure enough, some of the stuff they talked about, I knew, but they also talked about stuff I didn't know. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I thought, hey, you know what? If I've learned stuff in just 2 hours that I didn't know, what would I learn if I went for 3 days? And so I went on a 3-day course, and obviously I put it through the business, which you can do with training. And I was blown away. And again, some of the stuff I knew. And interestingly enough, I think Peter and Dick Dabner. A lot of people know them, very successful investors from Kent. They've spoken at the PIN meetings a lot. And I was sitting down at this table on the very first day. And this guy said to me, you Simon? I said, yeah, we don't have a name badge. I said, you Simon Zutshi? I said, yeah. And I'm thinking, who the hell is this guy? And by the way, no one knows me at this time, right? And he said, it's Peter Dabner. I thought, no way. And so we actually knew them, and they had been patients of my dad. So we kind of knew them, and we'd met a couple times. And I think Peter and his dad had actually been out to France to see my mum and dad one summer when I was there. And I didn't recognize him because we were both little kids, really. But grown up, and he was there. I said, what are you doing here? And they had a business, a glass business, like double glazing and stuff. And it hadn't done so well, a bit of difficulty. And they realized that when they had to shut the business down, the premises, the factory they had done much, much better and made more money for them than they had in the entire time operating there. So property is a pretty good thing. And they thought, we need to learn about this. So they came on this course and they didn't have any, I think they had one buy to let by then. And I had quite a few properties. I'd left work. And we sat down and I thought it was great. We went for lunch and we connected. And so I came on this course and I learned some really interesting stuff. I learned about, buying below market value, refurbishing property, really, that kind of thing, and creative finance. And actually I came off that course, and a month later, I bought a property with a credit card check. My girlfriend at the time, she didn't have any property. We put it in her name for her first property. She got a 90% mortgage, put down a 10% check for deposit. We'd had a survey on the property and they needed rewiring. It was a little flat, a nice flat actually. And so we used that survey to negotiate the price down further, got all the work done on a credit card. 6 months later, refinanced it back up to 90%. We increased the value and got all the money out, paid off the credit card. So no money left in deal. And I thought this was great. So I was really inspired by that training I did. But what happened was my enthusiasm and my motivation kind of waned very, very quickly. I was out there on my own doing it. The course was great, but on my own, this is a bit difficult. And so a year later, in 2003, I kind of thought, you know what, there's got to be a smarter way of doing this, because I'm all alone. All my friends were working. All my family, apart from this Ibiza boy, had never really invested in property. And I thought, there's got to be a smarter way. And I'd started a couple of years before going to Tony Robbins events. He's an American peak performance coach. It's all about environment, getting the right people around you, and constantly learning and reinforcing. And I thought, I need something like that. And I was actually going to a group called the Birmingham Yes Group. And it's a person that there's a London one and a Manchester one. It's all people who've done Tony Robbins stuff, basically. And it's a personal development group, meet once a month. And it's really good for mindset. And I think mindset, we'll talk about that later, is so important in business and in property and in life. And I thought, that's great, but none of those people really know much about property. So I thought I'd set up a property group, because I was going to breakfast networking meetings for business. I met a great solicitor, mortgage broker, accountant, all the people I needed for my property business. But none of them actually owned any investment. They didn't understand what I was trying to do. They didn't get where I was. So I set up PIN. I went online. There was nothing at all. So I set up the very first networking in the whole UK for property investors. And I called it Property Investor Network. Just one meeting here in Birmingham. I think Paul probably came to some of the original meetings, maybe. And people would come along and they said to me, this is great, Simon, and we're learning, coming to PIN. It's really good, we're connecting, but it's taken a long time to learn. Can you maybe run a course? So I did my first training in 2003, and I realized actually I really liked it, and realized people would pay me for it, even better. And people give us great feedback. And then that's how the training started. So since 2003, been training people. And then I realized that training is great, but a bit like I had experienced when I was on my own, it was difficult, and I was training people and they were giving great feedback. And we're talking like mid 2000s here, great time to buy. Property was booming. Anybody could get a mortgage. If you could fog up a mirror, you could get a mortgage. It was so easy. And yet there were some people who come on the training, say, this is brilliant, I get it. And I meet them a couple of months later at a PIN meeting. I've not done anything yet. And I think, what do you mean? You could buy anything 6 months later, be worth more money. It was so easy. And there wasn't as much competition. There were no webinars like this. There were, there wasn't as many people doing it. It was so easy. And yet some people weren't doing it. And I realized that knowledge alone is important, but it's not enough. And actually you need that support. You need that mindset. And that's why 2007, I started the Property Mastermind program. A lot of people on here probably done Mastermind. You would have met people who've done Mastermind. It's the longest running mentoring of its type. It's not cheap. Price keeps on going up every year, but the results keep on going up. And we are not the biggest training company. There are several other bigger training companies who train a lot more people than us every year. But it's interesting that we seem to have more successful students every year than anyone else. So we have some people who only buy one product, don't do much. That kind of happens. But our average student seems to be a lot more successful. It's not because of me. It's because of the incredible support and environment. And I don't like the word, but people often use the word kind of family kind of environment where instead of seeing everyone else as competition, you recognize actually I can learn from other people and, you know, really help each other. And that's what we do. It looks like you got a question, Nick.
Yeah, I have. Why did you, back in 2003, yeah, you like things I do, I think, like LMPG, I'll come on to that in a second, but why did you suddenly wake up one morning and go a property? Because you've done public speaking training. Yeah. In my bestest day, I couldn't get you when you were pissed. Sorry, to keep, yeah, I really couldn't. Yeah. I'm not a clever man. I just work really hard. Is that what made you spend 10 grand to do a public training course where you professionally talk?
Yeah. So here's the thing, right? I think that life is a journey. And I think some people get very comfortable with what they've got. Many people are very unsatisfied with their life and what they've got. And I believe anyone can do anything they want to do. If someone else has done it, it means it's possible. Now, I'm not saying it's easy, but I think one of the things I learned from Tony Robbins about modeling, if you want to be successful, you find people who've done what you want to do and you kind of copy them. You know, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And so, you know, when I actually went to my very first, let me tell you a story. So again, I don't think I've told this to anyone before, but when I was at university, I had a kind of and when I finished university, I didn't have a job for a year, and I was just doing little part-time jobs here and there. And I was focusing on trying to get a proper graduate job. And one of the jobs I had, part-time job, was at the evenings and weekends, I would work for a company that was working for one of the old training and enterprise councils, the techs. And they would go out and they'd do market research. We get paid to go door knocking and do market research, fill in these things. It's really boring, but it was paid okay. And there was a guy called Gavin who was in the same company as me. And at the weekends, you would tend to go out of area. So this one time we went down to London to go and do these questionnaires and working for these training and enterprise councils. And so anyway, Saturday morning, I meet Gavin at the range time. I think I'd been out on the Friday night on the beer. So I was feeling a bit groggy, bit sleepy. And Gavin, we get in the car. We got this hour-and-a-half drive down to just North London. And he says, do you mind if I put this cassette on? We're talking about, this is like early 90s. So it's cassettes before CDs, really. Yeah. I said, do you mind putting it? I said, what is it? It says the guy called Tony Robbins. Never heard of him. Oh, okay, fair enough. So I'm sitting there, kind of falling asleep a little bit, listening to Tony Robbins, who's talking all this kind of stuff. Who is brilliant, by the way, but I'd never heard of him before. I was kind of listening. I was kind of interested, you know, but I was kind of dozing off. And I'm pretty sure Gavin, who was really into Tony Robbins, was deliberately, occasionally swerving the car, so I'd go and wake up again, so I didn't miss any of this stuff, right? And I would have much rather listened to the radio, right? So I was listening to Tony Robbins stuff. And he had the one cassette, but he put another cassette in. He had this box with 6 cassettes, right? I think it was Unleash the Power Within was the recording, something like that. And at the end, he got out. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Yeah, it was kind of interesting. Yeah, you know, how much did you pay for that?" Now, at the time, you'd buy like a double cassette album kind of thing for about 10 quid or something. Now, that's what I call music one or whatever it was at that point for 10 quid. And he said, "Oh, it was £50." I said, 50 quid? You paid 50 quid for that? You must be crazy. Now, I had no money at the time, right? I was a student in debt and I had 50 quid. What are you're nuts, you know? Now, interestingly, my uncle, who was also a doctor, my dad's brother, he is into kind of personal development stuff. And he said, "Oh, Simon, you should listen to this." And when I kind of started work at Cadbury's, he'd sent me these leaflets from the company called Nightingale Conant, who used to produce these audio cassettes and things. And it was about business and entrepreneurship. I've always been entrepreneurial. So I sent off for one, spent my 50 quid, came in. That was really, really good. And I bought more. And I started to listen to these things and just work on my mind and my knowledge. And I then went to a trade show, a personal development show, probably in about 97. And went to the show to stand with the company because they'd invited me to the show and met lots of other people and things. And they said, oh, this guy is coming, a guy called Jay Abraham. Now, I'd got some of Jay Abraham's training, and he's an American marketeer, basically. And I had, as well as working at Cadbury's, I had a part-time business running student nightclub events, parties and things, which was great. And so so he said, oh, you if you're into marketing, you should come to this event. So I said, how much is it? And he said, it's £4,000 for a 4-day course. And I'm thinking, £4,000. That's like a couple of months take-home pay for a course. But I also realized that, you know what? I could put it through my business and pay less tax on my student nightclub business, right? And that's what I did. And that was the first time I really properly invested in myself. And I can honestly say the £4,000 spent, some of the things I learned on that course, what is it? I don't know, 1998. So over 20 odd years ago, I still use some of that stuff in my business now. And actually I've made millions and millions of pounds because I invested in myself. And so I'm a great believer that I continually improve myself, and everything I learn, I don't apply everything. I wish I did. And I think for a while I became a bit of a course junkie. I loved going, connecting and learning and meeting other people. I went to Brian Tracy. I went to Tony Robbins. And I went to the first Tony Robbins event, which was in 2000, where you walk on hot coals. Anyone who's done this. So you literally have these beds of burning ambers and they get you to walk across these things. So you might think, oh my God, it sounds like a cult, right? But you know what? It's all about a metaphor that if you do something like that, which you think would be impossible, what else could you do if you put your mind to it? It's an amazing metaphor. And I was just so transformed. I went and spent 10 grand on a credit card back of the room to join his year-long program.
You did his course?
I did his whole course, $10,000. I didn't have the money, put it on a credit card, bosh.
A friend of mine did that. Yeah. And I said, you're fucking stupid. He owns now more Costas than I would like to think.
Yeah. Well, isn't it interesting that, you know, most of the really successful people I know always invest in themselves. They know they can always learn more.
He was on the first one in the UK. Yeah. 2000. Yeah, 2000. The guy's a multi-millionaire.
I think it was a couple of years before. I think it was a couple of years before that started, but I got into it in 2000. But that was the early days.
Yeah.
And you know, some of my friends said, "You're crazy," but you know what? I've just sold my business for 15 million quid. So I don't think I've got that much of a problem, really.
No, but people don't understand that. I learned that at such an early age.
But I didn't get it, Nick. You know, when I was sitting in that car driving down to London, my friend told me he'd spent 50 quid on a set of cassettes. What? I didn't get it. And I think it's one of those things that you have to be ready for it. You have to be open for it. You can't force anyone to get into personal development. And, you know, when people they get exposed to it themselves, they want to tell their family, their friends, and sometimes those people, as much as you love them, they're just not ready for the message. So you can't force it down someone's throat. But when they get it, wow, it changes your life, changes your perspective.
What's the biggest thing that changed your life then, Simon?
Understanding that actually I am totally responsible for my life. We all have shit happen to us, things go wrong, and it's very easy to blame other people. Oh, it's because of this, because of that person, because of that, etc. But actually, I believe I'm going to get a bit woo-woo here. I think the life we lead, we've manifested everything. We attract things to us. And I think you can either, and most people are just completely unaware of this, and they're literally living in like the Matrix. But I think actually you can wake up and realize you can actually start to change your environment and you can change what you think about. And that's not easy because we've had years, a lifetime of conditioning and beliefs we're given from our family and our people around us. But actually you can decide, actually, maybe I want to change. I want to be better. I want to be more. And I believe anyone can change. And the biggest thing I've learned is actually we are in complete control of what happens. Now, sometimes things happen to us. You might think, well, that's, COVID. Did I manifest that? Well, probably not, but that happened to all of us, right? But interestingly, that we thought, well, we can either shut up shop and just do nothing for a year, or we can pivot our business, we can adapt, we can change. Many investors, that's it, I can't do it. I've got to get my mortgage holidays from the lenders. Panic, reacting. And one of the things I learned is rather than reacting to life, you want to respond to life. Now, I'm not saying I don't have bad days. I'm not saying I don't get pissed off by things, but I'm always trying to work on myself, say, actually, sometimes things happen. And what does this mean? And if you can get the lesson, and if you don't get the lesson, guess what? The universe is going to come and tap on the shoulder, give you the lesson again. This time they're going to knock you around the head, and eventually they're going to knock you over with steamer if you don't get the message. So you've got to wake up and see what's happening in your life. And I think we can absolutely, when things happen, we can choose the meaning we attribute to those things.
Yeah, I think conditioning and life teaches you, don't take a risk, you can't achieve things. As a kid, no. And I did something with my daughter. One of the things that I tried to do was make sure that no wasn't, I explained. Yeah. And I don't want to tell too much about my story because it's not about me tonight, it's about you. Is that I had a teacher called John Thorogood. Yep, he's a priest now, and he's retired in his 80s. And I was 11 years of age. I was in the dunces class called the Meridial Group. Couldn't read and write, and I still can't. I really can't. And they called my parents in, and one of the things was that my dad was a pessimist, my mum was an optimist. And John Thorogood, Mr. Thorogood, as I knew him, sat them down and said, look, we want to do something with Nick. We are going to, for the next 5 years, catch him doing everything right. All we're going to do is we want to do an experiment, and we're going to give him positivity.
Yeah.
He won't get one detention. He'll get a merit point, whether it's good or bad. I didn't realize I was thick when I went to college. I was in my first day of college, and I got a penny man, a piece of paper, and they started doing dictation. And I went, what's this? A pen? I did woodwork, metalwork, art, cooking. I didn't do any other lessons. Mine were all practical.
Yeah.
Nothing with writing. And I was in a mainstream school. And then I realized I'd better learn. So I found a way. You find a way. For my sickening guilds, I had a reader and a scriber. So in my exam, I'm in a private room. I had a reader, read me the questions. I dictated my answers.
Yeah.
I did that. Then I went on to my bridging paper, my banking paper. Yeah. I had a reader and I had a scriber. Then I went on to my FPC 1, 2, and 3, my CMAP exams. I had a reader and I had a scriber. You find a way. I was taught at such an early age, no is not an option. You find a way. And
that's why you built the business you built, Nick.
Yeah. Well, I didn't do it on my own. And again, I'm a great believer in that everybody helped me. And absolutely. I'm a great believer in telling people who helped me. And I'm a pain in the arse to work with some days. I have my wobblies. Yeah. COVID-19. I had a plan. I think the goal is the end of that journey. Once you do, the journey isn't the goal. The goal is the end. Once you've done it, then you step again. I'm a real simple guy. I have one goal. Wasn't financial. I was asked a question by a multi-millionaire who again helped me, and I've been really lucky. I've had a mentor since the age of 19. I've got 2. I speak to one of them every day in the morning, and I speak to him on the way home. And I have one I talk to once a month since the age of 19.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, nobody knew that. Nobody knows that. It's personal to me. And I tell you, it's not anything he doesn't know about me. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
And because I have a habit of biting on something and not letting go. I know my strengths and weaknesses has been in the history in life, it's general. But one of the things is that you are absolutely right. If that's right, you can achieve absolutely anything. So my next question to you, and the one I struggle with, and I wrote them down, that I still struggle. How do you deal with personal criticism? When somebody says, oh, that Simon's only in it for the fucking money. He's a dick. Yeah. And how do you cope with that? Oh, that hurts me. Oh, do I pull my toys out, my friend?
Yeah. So yeah, and there are loads of, the more successful you get, the more people you would have like that who want to tear you down, right? And I think what you need to understand is, and I used to get really annoyed by that. And especially someone says, oh, why invest in yourself? You don't need to do it. You can all learn it hard. Look, I did it the hard way. And it took me 8 years to raise my income. That's fucking stupid doing it like that. Excuse my French. Sorry.
You carry on.
And I've got a friend of mine, Greg from Cadbury's, who started the year before me. He was there for 20 years. And he left because a couple of reasons. But anyway, he left, took redundancy after 20 years. He had a very high salary, much higher than my leaving salary after only 5.5 years. He looked me up. He dabbled in property in the mid 2000s, got a couple of singlets, got a bit burnt, and he wanted to replace his income. And he came on my mastermind program. And so he's very same age, same career, etc. I did it on my own the hard way. I did okay, but it took me 8 years. Greg completely replaced his salary in 8 months. 8 months. And people say, oh, yeah, no, you do it yourself. Well, guess what? Some people do it themselves. No problem with that. But when people generalize and when people like to lump all education together, everybody knows. Because actually, if you ask anyone who's actually done my training, I do actually really care about my course and my people on the course. And I'll do everything I can. Now, they've got to do the work. I'm not going to do it for them. But we do everything we can to support them. And I don't know about other courses, because I've done other courses, but that's not what I hear about other organizations. And so it annoys me when everyone can have an opinion, that's fine. But when someone makes an opinion as if it's fact and they don't actually know because they've not done it, that kind of frustrates me. Then I realized, and again, I hate to quote Tony Robbins, but Tony Robbins had a huge effect on me. He's got a great saying that this is easy to understand, but difficult to apply. He says, it's none of your business what other people think about you. It's none of your business what other people think about you. Because I might be worrying, well, what's Nick thinking about me, etc. And actually, you might be thinking, other people might be making judgments. We as humans, we make judgments about people, right? But you know what happens? 99% of the time, people are not thinking about me, Nick. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves. And they're worrying about what other people are thinking about them. So actually, you need to get out, and I'm not saying to you two, I'm saying generally, we all need to get out of our own way, get out of the way of our ego. People are not thinking about us all the time. They're thinking about themselves. And what other people think about is none of our business. And why would I care what someone thinks who I don't care about? Now, someone I respect and someone who I like, if they've got negative things to say about me on social media, whatever, I'd be upset by that. But if someone who I don't even know and I don't even care about says something, I don't give a toss. And it's taken a long time to get to that point, because I know in my heart of hearts what I'm doing is I'm helping thousands of people, whether it's just people who've just read my book and they've been inspired by that. Oh, listen, we put so much free content out, my Property Magic podcast, my YouTube channel. There's so much free stuff. And actually, if people listen to that and just take action with that, they'll be really successful. But you know what? Most people don't do it on their own, so they want help, support, and that's why people come and pay. And often some of the stuff we teach on my program is exactly what I've just given away to everyone for free. And some people are not smart enough to work out, actually, when they come on a course, what you're getting is not just the time you're on the course. You're getting 25 years of experience of having done it well, but also made loads of mistakes and having helped thousands of people. And, I know exactly what anyone can do. And unfortunately, not everyone's the same. People have different strategies and they have different requirements. But I reckon I can help anybody who wants to be helped, whether they've got money or not, to become a successful property investor, but they have to make the decision. They have to do it. So I know that's where I come from. So it's taken a long time, but I really don't mind about other people out there. And I just know the more successful you are, Richard Branson, he's a pretty successful guy, right? He's had some terrible things said about him, just brushes it off him. That's my answer, Nick. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I just wish I could do that.
It's not easy.
I'm glad that you've mentioned your mistakes there, Simon, because I want to get onto those in a second. But just contrasting your story and Nick's story, what I found interesting there was that Nick didn't have a choice. He had to get this mindset because no wasn't an option.
Yeah.
But for you obviously started off with a regular risk-averse mindset, should we say?
Yeah, I wanted to get into normal convention, get a great job. That's what you do, right? That's what I did.
So when that changed, was that a gradual process? Did it just click one day?
I've always been entrepreneurial, but I just didn't know how to do it or what to do. I've done little odd things here and there, becoming a magician. I did that. It was a hobby, and I realized I could make money from it. I did kids' parties and things. And I just realized there's another way, because we don't realize that. We're conditioned. You have got to go to school, go to college, get a good job. That's what we're told to do. Buy a house, get married, have kids, pay off your mortgage, die 6 months later normally. That's what we're told to do. But actually, you start to realize there's more to it than that. And actually, we have control over our lives if we decide to take that control and do something about it.
So, of course, do you find? Sorry, Anthony, go on. Anthony, go on.
Oh, well, I was just going to go actually onto one of the questions, because you mentioned your mistakes, and that's what we want to dig into today. We want to talk about difficulties.
Anthony, we've not got long enough to talk about all my mistakes.
Well, let's talk about the top one then. What's the biggest mistake that you learned the most from?
I think the biggest mistake I've made is I've been too trusting. I like to think I'm a nice guy. I think other people are like me, and I think I've had people take advantage of me. I've assumed people are going to do what they say they're going to do, keep to their word. Especially in property, things go wrong, right? And I've done some joint ventures where people have come to me with great deals, and they have been a great deal. They said, "Oh, I can project manage it," and I've kind of thought, "Oh yeah, okay, great, you can project manage it." And because I invest still, because I think it's important to be up to date if you're teaching people. But property is not my passion. What it does for you is a passion. I'm passionate about training and teaching, right? If I had to choose one, I'd always choose the training. But I still do property because it's good to keep up to date, and there's some great opportunities out there, and you can make good money from it. And I've maybe trusted people too much, and I'm going to take responsibility. It's not their fault. It's my fault for not being on top of it as much as I should be. And things have taken longer and cost more, etc. And some projects haven't really made any money. It's because I've been too trusting. That's probably, I've lent money to people I shouldn't have lent money to. So that's probably my biggest mistake. And actually just wising up and recognizing we're not all the same. Not everyone's quite same values and integrity. That's probably one of the biggest learnings from that mistake I've made.
Can I ask you a personal question?
Yeah, go.
I was asked this when I was 20. People do things for certain reasons.
Yeah.
And I was always told, and I've shown, because I argue with this, did you do it for financial, or was it status?
Interesting. I think you change over life. I think you mature as well. Definitely, I've done lots of things for financial reasons. I work really, really hard, but I get very well financially rewarded for that. But I do a lot of things for free as well. So actually, because I put a lot of free stuff out there, for example, because I want to help people. And actually, I know if I help people for free, I know a certain number will say, actually, if I got all this for free, what would I get if I come and did some training with Simon?
Yeah.
Okay. I've sold my business. I don't have to do this anymore.
No.
Crown Property is worth a huge amount of money. I really don't have to do that, but I do it, and I still get paid to do stuff, but I do it because I love it. And what I particularly love, Nick, and everyone, is when I see people get it. And I think one of my skills is I like to make things very, very simple, very straightforward. I take what can be a difficult, complex subject, break it down, make it, here's what you do step by step by step. And when people get it, they go, "Oh, I get it." And I see them take action. I get a massive buzz out because that gives me a feeling of significance. That gives me a feeling of worth, that I have made a difference in someone else's life. They've done all the work, but I've been a bit of a catalyst that's helped them. I used to want to get the praise and recognition from that. Recognition was a big value I had, but I realized that's what's called a danger value, because if you're relying on other people to acknowledge you, you're always going to be wanting more. And actually now I'm pretty much at peace with myself in that I know what I'm doing is making a difference, and I don't need anyone else to tell me that. I do like it, obviously, when people say thanks, and I get emails from people say what they've achieved or what they've done and as a result of reading my book or whatever. And I do get a buzz from that, but I don't need that. Does that make sense?
No. See, again, a lot of people won't understand that. Mine wasn't financial. Mine was status, because that goes back to early years of mine not being able to read. Because I went deaf from the age of 5 to whatever, and I had an operation, and then suddenly I can hear. So I didn't learn. It wasn't that I couldn't, I just didn't learn. So mine was always status. I wanted to achieve something, to be recognized for achieving that. And that still haunts me today. That's a weakness. I totally agree with you that I need praise for that. Yes, it's something out there in me.
I'm similar in that, and I said recognition, but I think it's almost as deep as acceptance.
Yeah,
everyone wants to be accepted. Everybody wants to be accepted. They want to be liked. And I desperately wanted people to acknowledge me, that I was worthy. That a question people ask themselves all the time is, "Am I worthy?" And that's a deep rooted question that people have. And I definitely had that as one of my primary questions, I would think. And I'm sure many people, people might say, "What are you talking about, Simon?" But I bet you a lot of people say, "Yeah, absolutely. You're being really bloody honest here, Simon." And to be honest, when I was at school, I've got a strange name, blonde hair, short eyesight, eyes that move because I'm involuntary, and I had a real self-complex, and I just wanted to be accepted. And don't all kids want that, and I had to work quite hard.
I tell you, one day it got really bad. I bought a house in Wales. The word is that long. I put it on my steering wheel, sellotaped it. I went round this roundabout, and this is a true story, 20 times. I couldn't find the house. I've never found the house. I brought it, yeah. You might laugh. I went round and round this fucking roundabout. It was in the valleys.
Right.
I went back, rang the agent, said, put it in an auction. I've been there once and someone else drove. Could I fucking find it? And I made 250 quid. And
well,
that is
I
true
bought
story.
a number of properties I've never, ever been to.
No, I couldn't fucking find it.
But I did have someone else go for me and take pictures and do a survey and stuff like that. But, I've never lost a house like that, Nick. No, that's a unique one, I think.
Yeah, that honestly,
that's just yours.
I got so frustrated. I kicked the car. I was everything blinding. I went in back on the M4. I went into the service station. I was pacing. I was swearing my head off. Yeah. And a bloke came up to me. I'll never forget it. He said, "Here, mate, I've got a Sony TV in the back of my motor. Do you want to sell it? Do you want to buy it?" I said, "You off." Oh, God. Anthony, go to some questions. Sorry, mate.
Well, since Simon was going on about how he doesn't like praise and doesn't like validation so much, I daren't even read some of this out, because everyone's talking about how great the Property Accelerator course was that they did a while back, and how glad they are that they've invested in themselves and that sort of thing. So a lot of praise.
Don't get me wrong, Anthony. I do like praise, but I don't need it. I don't seek it. I used to desperately seek it. I needed validation from other people. But keep it coming, guys. I'm happy to take that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, if you've ever got any withdrawals, just send me an email. I'll send you some of these over. But why I wanted to ask is, at the beginning, we started this long series at the beginning of lockdown over a year ago now, because as NMPG, we thought, God, we've got a monthly meeting. Nick goes to all these pin events of yours, and we can't see those landlords anymore. So we needed a way of getting in front of them, and making sure everyone knew that because it's such an individual journey, that there are other people around you, going through the same thing, going through the same difficulties.
Yeah.
For your company, for PIN, that is almost entirely events based, must have been absolutely shitting yourself.
Yeah. So I remember vividly. It was 13 months ago. I had an event called Strategy Implementation Live, which is a big annual event we do, normally in March. And I was over in Phoenix, in America, Arizona. And I'm actually in 2 American mastermind groups, not property, but kind of business related. And I went over for, and it's based in Phoenix, one of the groups. And I went over for my February meeting. I go 3 times a year typically. And a very good friend of mine is a guy called Dolph DeRoos, who's the author of Real Estate Riches, which was the book that Robert Kiyosaki had about property. And we had Dolph coming to Strategy Implementation Live. And I'd started to hear about things in Italy, but I try not to watch the news because the news has got so much negativity on it. And Dolph, I went out for lunch with Dolph and we were sitting there chatting. He said, Simon, this stuff happened in Italy and I don't know if it's going to be wise to come to Europe, to UK. And I was kind of, okay, well, look, Dolph, we can find a way. We can do you in by satellite, whatever, Zoom, whatever. And so we decided to, and luckily he didn't come out because he would have been stranded in the UK, right? But this was a big event. We had like 450 people registered, our biggest event ever, live event in London. And and things started to happen. And we said to him, look, guys, if anyone is nervous, don't come to the event. If you're ill, don't come. We're gonna make sure everyone's washing their hands all the time. This is before social distancing came in, washing your hands and everything. And there's gonna be hand sanitizer everywhere. We're not really shaking hands. So we kind of were observing some of those things before it happened. But it was a huge event. We had about 10% didn't turn up. So 400 people there. Brilliant event. Amazing. And then in just a week after that, about mid-March, we thought, you know what? This is starting to get quite bad. And I had a meeting with my PIN team, Donna, and obviously you know Donna very well, Nick. And I said, Donna, I think we might have to stop doing physical meetings. We should plan to go virtual. And we do lots of webinars and things, so it wasn't too bad. But having 50 meetings, doing that and changing the booking system. So I said, we had a session in the office. Okay, what could we do? How could we do that? And then on the Saturday, this was before lockdown was announced, on the Saturday before, one of my PIN hosts said, look, hey, Spain are going into lockdown. We're not going to come over because it's Andy and Mary who live in Spain, who used to fly every month for the Birmingham PIN meeting to host it for us. And they said, we're not coming over. And I called Donna, said, Donna, I think we should go virtual. And that was on the Saturday. And by the Monday, the next meeting, it was the 3rd Monday of the month, it was the Berkshire meeting, was a virtual meeting. So we pivoted incredibly quickly because we saw what was happening. And, you know, we did meetings on Zoom at first. We have several PIN meetings on the same night. We put them all together at first. And so we did go to a webinar. And then we thought, actually, let's go to individual Zoom meetings because we can have breakout rooms and network. So look, sometimes you don't get things right straight away. And I think so many people in life, they wait till everything's perfect. People say, well, I'm not going to invest in property till I know everything. You're never going to know everything about property. Just do something and move forward. And if you get it wrong, you can always go back. And so we just adapted really quickly. And before you know it, we've got 500 annual meetings all online every month. And actually, you know, the numbers have been actually creeping up. So we're getting quite a lot of people registering because people realize that the benefit of being virtual now, you've got people on this training right now who wouldn't come to your physical meeting.
Yeah.
Now people can come and join in from literally all over the country. And in fact, all over the world. We have a lot of international investors who want to meet people on the ground and the smart people on the ground at PIN are saying, hang on a minute, these are international investors' money. I can be the person on the ground doing the running around, but I've got to show up at the meeting to connect to these people. Whereas some are going, oh, I wouldn't spend 20 quid to do an online meeting. Just don't get it. Just don't get it. And you can't try and persuade them. That's fine, but they don't get it. And you know what? If someone's not prepared to spend 20 quid, and everyone can come to their first meeting for free, by the way, to check it out, see if they like it. But if someone can't see the value of building the network and learning from other people, guess what? They're really not the kind of people we want to work with anyway. That might be a bit harsh.
No, Simon, I've never seen you like this. I've never seen you being so straight and honest, and that's really what I wanted from this.
You say I'm normally dishonest, Nick?
No, I didn't say that. Yeah. What I'm saying though,
Well, look, Nick, you said you wanted it full 2 barrels.
I did, and I really do.
And that's what I'm trying to do for you, right?
But yeah, I think people need to understand that it's hard out there.
Yeah,
and
it is.
when people try to do it on their own, we fail every day. If it's not Magnet, it'll be Plum Centre, Wolseley, or it'll be Johnston's. One of the branch managers has got it wrong, or someone said something to upset a member. Oh, we get it every day.
Of course you
Quotes
do.
haven't turned up every day.
How many times, Nick, have you thought, sod this, it's not working, I'll give up?
Truthfully?
Yeah. I don't need an exact number. A general would do. I can see you counting them up there.
Truthfully, once.
Ready? Well, I thought about packing in pin a lot more than that.
No, once. And it sticks with me today. A guy came to me after me doing a presentation, and his exact words to me were, LMPG is a great concept. The only problem is you.
Oh, that's harsh.
And it sits with me even today.
Yeah.
That was 3 years ago. Oh, wow.
You know what? It's when it's. Let me tell you about something. So sometimes people have beliefs that just get in their way of life. Okay, let me give you an example of this. And so it was back in about 2006. Before I was doing mastermind, we were still doing pin meetings. We had about 4 pin meetings. And then we had Bristol, London, Birmingham, Manchester, maybe. That was it in the early days. And I had learned in 2006 from a pin meeting about motivated sellers. For the first 11 years, I'd found 1 or 2 deals, but I was pretty much buying at full market price. And I didn't know about it. And I learned from someone I met at the pin meeting. Then at a different pin meeting, I met a mortgage broker who said, oh, if you find those kind of deals, you can finance it no money down using Mortgage Express. And then I found a solicitor who could actually do that. So I put all the bits there. So I've gained so much from networking. I know how valuable it is, right? And so I was going to pin meetings. I was doing a talk, how to buy property no money down. Because, you know, we didn't have this format we have now. It was pretty much me. I was going to all the meetings. Each month I'd talk about something different. And I remember we had, at that time, we used to have a buffet as well. People who've been to pin a long time.
Yeah, you did.
And it was a real nightmare because the hotel food's never great. And for 10 quid, you get a really dodgy kind of buffet thing. Yeah. And we'd have to tell the hotel days before how many people you need it. Then some people would book last minute. There wouldn't be food for it. So we dropped it. It was just a nightmare. But anyway, it was 30 quid to come along because there was food included. And I remember having this phone call with this guy who he'd come along with his daughter. So he spent 60 quid, his student daughter, who was at Bristol University, and they'd come to this talk about me talking about buying property below market value, no money down, and how. And I was telling him the exact process, how you do it, right? For 20 quid, for 30 quid. And he called me up, and that day my number was a lot more available. Called me up 2 days later and said, I want my money back. What do you mean? So I came to the Bristol pin meeting with my daughter. I spent 60 quid and you're talking complete rubbish. You're making it up. You're just a fraudster, etc. And I said, whoa, hang on a minute. And when someone's really vile and violent, they said, well, hang on a minute. So I spent 45 minutes explaining the process to him. And he said, it doesn't work. I said, what do you mean? He said, I've spoken to my solicitor. My solicitor says it's not possible. And I said, well, the reality is I'm doing it. Lots of other people are doing it. And you can either choose to believe it's impossible, or you can choose to go and do it and get lots of property and actually get paid to buy property. And that guy was so fixed in his belief because he spoke to a solicitor, and you can understand someone speaks, but then maybe he should get a second or third opinion. I said, I can introduce you to the solicitors who we're using if you want, and you could speak to them. No, it's not possible. And you think someone is so judgmental, someone's so fixed in their belief. That guy could have gone and bought lots of property, and in someone like Bristol in 2006, it'd be worth a lot of money. But because of his beliefs and mindset, he just got in his own way. And I kind of thought, you know, someone's calling me a fraudster. I don't like, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And his belief was so strong, it almost influenced mine. And that's one that I thought, oh, fuck this. I'm just, why should I tell other people? I'm just going to go and do it myself. Screw them, if you know.
Yeah.
But I thought, no, actually, because there were lots of other people who said, this is great, Simon. Thanks for sharing this. Thanks for helping me out.
Yeah, my team, I get loads, but that's the one thing, because it's like, like we were taught, don't listen to negativity. I have a saying in my head, fantastic, and walk away. In my head, I don't say it out loud because that's arrogant, but I just go fantastic and just walk away. But this one guy got in it 4 years ago, and that was the first time I thought, what the fuck am I? What am I doing?
And look, that's his opinion, and he's entitled to his opinion. He maybe just doesn't like you, doesn't resonate with you, whatever. But very often, and this comes to criticism as well, the reason you kind of don't worry about what other people say, very often, and this might upset some people, right? But this is what I believe. Sometimes people criticize you, and it's not about you. It's about them. Because by criticizing you, trying to pull you down, it makes them feel a bit better. And some of these keyboard warriors who are online, blah, 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 you know, they should get out a bit more.
What do you call them?
Keyboard warriors. On the keyboard. If you met them face to face, they'd never say some of the things they say. But because
no, they don't. No, I got that one. Yeah.
But I actually feel sorry for people like that. That might sound really arrogant. I'm sorry, but they just need to get out a bit more and live life a bit more. And I sometimes wonder, some of these people on Facebook forums all the time, you think they're supposed property experts. Do they actually go and do any property investing at all? Or they just seem to be online all the time? I'll get off my high horse now. Sorry.
No, please, honestly, Simon, I just think that life is hard. And life is really hard, especially when COVID's there and what we've been through the last 12 months. But the human spirit can really push through this. And I think as a nation, we'll come through this. We really will, stronger than when we went into it. I really do believe that.
Wasn't it one of the great things? Do you remember when lockdown happened and it first happened on a Thursday night? I think it was. People would go out and they'd applaud the NHS. And people were starting to take an interest in their neighbours and what the neighbours are doing and looking after them.
Yeah.
How amazing was that? Before that, people didn't even know who the neighbours were. I think through adversity, actually good things come.
Yeah.
And I think probably a lot of people appreciated, actually, maybe I value my friendship and my family more because I can't see them. And, you know, and I think sometimes it's very easy to become used to life and become complacent and not appreciate what's there. And one of the things that I do every day, getting a bit woo-woo, but, you know, I know some incredibly successful people do this, is trying to feel grateful and have that feeling of gratitude for all the things we have. And look, if anyone's ever depressed or upset, and I've had my ups and downs, and I've had some really bad times during this lockdown, as most people have. And I think mental health has been an issue that's affected most of us, if we're honest, right? But if someone's really down, if you get them to sit down, start writing a list of all the things they're grateful for. And it's difficult at first if you're negative, but you cannot be in a state of gratitude and also be negative or depressed. And it's the quickest way to get people out of depression. The problem is sometimes people want to be in depression because they get a sense of connection with themselves and their story and how terrible it is. But we can completely control our lives. We can decide what happens in our lives, and bad things happen. We can decide the meaning we give to that.
Yeah. I'm loving this. Look, I'm just thinking, I know you got your dinner in 5 minutes time.
I've been given the countdown. My wife is cooking dinner and I cannot be late for 8 o'clock because I really will get hell. But
yeah, I heard you got married, Paul. Simon.
I did. It was a very last minute thing. We were thinking about doing it last year, and lockdown came, and my wife said she was on to the registry office when they're opening up, and I want to get married. And she got a slot in January. And she came in and said, Simon, I've got a slot. And I said, when is it? She said, 22nd January. I said, I can't, I've got mastermind that day. Can't do it. She said, we're doing it. I said, what do you mean? I've got mastermind. And so we were doing mastermind virtually. We had to rearrange this. I got another speaker, and Andy Haynes, who runs mastermind with me, my right-hand man, really. He met me at the registry office. So he left from his home. I left from my home. You can only go in and have 20. It's not a great ceremony to because you're in, out. You can't hang around. That's it. And we're back in time for the next session of mastermind. Talk about multitasking. But we're gonna have a proper big Indian wedding in the anniversary of that in January next year, assuming we can open up and things. And so and my wife Nav, she's Indian, and I'm a quarter Indian. Zutshi is a Kashmiri name.
Paul, we won't get an invite to that one.
Oh, I've already got it. I've already got it, mate.
Not down, mate. Your name's not down.
I've already got it. Quick one, Simon. You mentioned a lot of big famous names, Tony, Dolph, and whatever. Who's the person who's most influenced you?
It's really hard. I mean, I think Tony Robbins really got me to wake up and recognize stuff. Jay Abraham, I've learned. Brian Tracy's brilliant. But you know what? I actually think my dad is my mum and dad, because I remember my mum saying to me, especially when I was, not being very academic, didn't really want to go to university because I didn't know what I was doing. I thought I could do magic. Mum said, "Look, you got to, whatever you do in life, son, just be happy." And I thought that's bloody amazing advice. That's one thing. And my dad was a GP, and he was in the same practice in West Kingsdown, which is next to Brands Hatch, for 27 years. And my dad was one of the doctors where, sometimes doctors get a bit of a bad rep. You call them up, just take some aspirin, whatever. But he was actually, if someone was ill, he could go there, he'd go and see them, and he'd go out. And that's why he was getting so tired. And my dad retired early at 57. He wouldn't have made 60. He wouldn't have made 60. He was really tired, really drawn. And so by going to France, actually, he looked 67 when he was 57. And after 10 years living in the south of France, when he was actually 67, he looked 57. So he kind of gained 20 years and lived to the ripe old age of 84 in the end. So he's not with us anymore. Yeah. But my dad very much had this philosophy that he was taught by his dad about service. And he said, if you want to be successful in life, it's not just about you. You want to serve other people. You want to add value to other people. If you do that, you will be rewarded massively. And I've always thought that, when I do stuff, I want to help people out and I get rewarded for that. But you know what? I think if you, in any business, whatever it is, whether you are a landlord and you're thinking about how can I add value to my tenants, give them great accommodation living, or whether you are some other business, if you can add value to other people, that's probably the most important thing in your business. And if you do that, you will be successful. You will make money.
Simon, on that note, because it's 8 o'clock and you've got to go and have your dinner, can I, for the 66 people and the hundreds of people watching it and who are going to watch this, can I really thank you for coming on and doing what you've done for tonight, to everybody to get to know you as an individual?
My pleasure. Well, thank you for asking me. And, I think congratulations to you. And I look forward to celebrating the day you get to your 5,000 members, which won't be that long, I guess.
Well, hopefully it'll be in the next month. I would have thought so. And you know what, Nick, I really admire you. You had an idea, you had a passion, you wanted to set this up, and I thought it was a great idea, and I'm really pleased to be able to support you along the way and to kind of give you a bit of a platform. And thanks for returning that favor. And your thing I like about you, Nick, I had to think long and hard to find one thing, but no, the thing only joke. A is your sense of humor, because you get things. But the thing I really like about you, Nick, is you recognize your journey and you appreciate other people who've helped you on the way. Yeah.
I've never asked for anything from you, but you've always been very supportive of me because I was supportive of you, and you've just paid that back many times over. And when you said, "Hey, I want to do something a bit different, Simon, that you've kind of never done before," I say, "Hey, why not? Let's give it a go." And so I hope people got some sort of value. We haven't talked that much about property really, but I hope people got some value out of tonight. Hope it's inspired people. And but my final message would be, look, decide what you want to do. Get a plan, take action, keep going till you get there. The amazing thing about property, if you do it right, it can completely change your life for the better. It's not easy. There are going to be problems, going to be ups and downs. But if you keep going, you can change your life, and you can change the life of people around you. And if you don't have to worry about working for a living, you can really spend your life making a difference, doing something that's going to really be important to you and other people, and have a massive ripple effect. So with that in mind, thanks for asking me, and
thank you. And the other thing is, make sure you've got a good partner behind you as well. I have a great
partner who's just come to the door to tell me I need to start eating my food so it doesn't end up on my head.
Send my love to her and say
Thank you
hi.
so much, guys. All the best.
Thanks, Simon.
Honestly,
Cheers.
thanks.
Bye-bye.
And thank you. All I'm going to say is good night and thank you very much for this series. And we'll see you in about 6 weeks' time for series 4.